This is an incredibly defeating title, but we're going to turn this into how you can lose belly fat with sleep apnea because that sounds more constructive than me just telling you why things can't happen. And belly fat, or also being defined as visceral fat, is something that not only we don't like the look of, but it means a lot for your body in terms of the overall systemic health going downhill. So if you're someone who has belly fat, whether you have some rotundity in this area here, where's my cursor, or I mean, you don't look like you have lava inside of you, probably. It's just having more of that abdominal fat, and it's very hard to get rid of because the thing is, one, you're tired and probably can't really put in a great effort into the gym, and then it becomes this like self-defeating thing of I'm tired, I can't lose weight, you gain weight, I'm tired. It just becomes a spiral. But the thing is, it's not so much your willpower. That's not the problem. All right. It is more the underlying physiology, which will zap you of your willpower here. Because when you have inflammation, these other problems going on, and I'll give you the four big mechanisms that if we address those one by one, can allow you to burn off belly fat, visceral fat, without actually losing any weight. Sounds good, right? And you'll gain some muscle because obviously, if you lose something, you got to gain something back here. So that's what we're going to talk about: what belly fat is and how to address it without intense exercise or starving yourself. And of course, educational purposes only. And this is Peter, the educational porpoise. And always talk to your doctor before making any changes. All right. So, uh, belly fat, what's going on with this? What are the four big switches that we need to work on? So, it all stems from, and this is like the overarching thing, and there's four individual pieces. Every time you stop breathing at night, oxygen goes up, oxygen goes down, damage throughout your body in many ways, whether it's inside of your cells causing oxidation, whether it's in your hormones going up and down, whether it's insulin not working, all those different pieces will be damaged. And that's when you'll get dysfunctional adipose tissue, known as visceral fat. So there's two main types of fat for this discussion, at least. There's subcutaneous fat, that's fat underneath your skin. That's like typically what we think of around fat. It is relatively easier to burn off than visceral fat, which is going to be deeper inside of some of the compartments of our body, like behind your abdominal wall. And the reason this develops is because when you have so much inflammation and everything going on, your fat cells go haywire, and instead of being these like a bank account, like a checkings account that is, where you can put money in, you can take money out, it becomes a savings account that's very hard to access. All right? Where you have to, like, get on the phone and talk to people and all this stuff. Eh, anyway, you can tell my local bank policies, but I guess that's better. But instead of money, it's fat, and I don't know about you, but, like, a fat savings account, I mean, unless we enter some sort of apocalyptic situation, not something at the top of my itinerary. So, that's why I wanna talk about being able to turn back that fat burning fire. That was supposed to be a joke here, but it's not a very good one. So number one, there's four of these switches. So number one, think of them like problems first. High insulin is going to be one of the biggest problems because it will block something known as hormone sensitive lipase. This is your main fat burning enzyme here. And I apologize for a lot of different science here, blah, blah, blah. But if we zoom in, you see HSL here? That is what we're talking about. Hormone sensitive lipase. If insulin is high, then this does not work and fat will stay inside of the fat cells. It does not come out as easily. All right. That's why a lot of just like starving yourself or working out really hard doesn't always have the effect that we want. I'm not saying it doesn't work, it's just not as effective as we hope because hormonally things are off. So if you have HSL is off, then things are not going to be as efficient. So we'll talk about how to turn that on in a moment. Number two is high cortisol. If you have sleep apnea, your cortisol is high. Sorry. Don't know what else to tell you. I guess I could tell you why that is because every single time you stop breathing at night, your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, your stressed out system gets activated. So therefore, cortisol, your stress hormone, goes up. Now, cortisol makes things doubly bad because it will activate this enzyme, LPL. What this does is it takes fat from your blood that is inside these different sort of proteins. Like you eat stuff, then fat goes inside these proteins in your blood, and it takes the fat from there and puts it into storage mode. That's what happens. That's what LPL does. That's shown there again. So not only is insulin making it harder to burn fat, but then cortisol gives you more of a signal to store fat. So kind of a bad situation to be in. Now, to make things even worse, are something known as beta and alpha receptors. Now, it's getting a little complex perhaps, but it's important. And I found this great picture. Here's the creator from, I think from Instagram I found this. Yeah, probably. The beta and alpha receptors are these, think of them as light switches around a fat cell. Now, when you have more beta than alpha, you can more easily burn fat because you can like flip the right switches. However, if you have fewer beta and more alpha, you're not going to be able to turn on that fat cell very well. All right, so very important thing to consider here. And lastly, is just inflammation is going to be less fat burning, mainly because when we think about fat burning, we've only talked about mobilizing fat, which means getting it from a fat cell somewhere else. That somewhere else needs to be inside of like an engine to combust, to burn that fuel. That engine is your mitochondria. But when inflammation is really high, your mitochondria will not work. So even if you mobilize the fat, you're able to get the fat out of a cell and bring it to a mitochondria to be burned. If inflammation is very high, that mitochondria or mitochondrion is not going to be able to efficiently burn it. So just because you bring a fat cell to a mitochondria doesn't mean it's going to burn it. You know, the classic saying, or there's something with horses. I forget. But so those are the four switches here. And then in terms of like burning visceral fat, one, the the proof that you can just do this. I know some people just say like, "Oh, just lose a lot of weight," and that's a good way to do it. Some people maybe you're tired to do all those things. Maybe you're tight on time. So I just want you to understand that you can make a lot of improvement with visceral fat without having a substantial amount of weight loss. Especially, let's say you watch this video and it's 2 weeks down the road. You're like, ugh, the scale isn't budging. As long as you're doing some of the things we're talking about, visceral fat is going down. All right. And no, I don't think you should go get an MRI just to confirm how much visceral fat you are or are not burning. So that's what that study shows. You can lose visceral fat without losing a substantial amount of body fat. So insulin, what do we do about insulin? How do we get it low? We just tell it to leave. So one big thing is going to be fasting. Now, I think everybody with sleep apnea, I think it's a very good idea to eat breakfast. So that's why I think early time restricted feeding, also known as late not eating, and they always like invert all these intermittent fasting things. Just think of it as having a very early dinner or skipping dinner entirely altogether. So the research has shown that this type of fasting, early time restricted feeding or skipping dinner, is more effective at improving insulin sensitivity. Now, before you freak out and like, oh, I can't eat dinner with anyone, maybe just try it some days. All right, just as an initial thought here. And the reason this works so well is because it will extend the fasting window. So then insulin can kind of reset. So then you're not as insulin resistant and insulin can then go down. And this is particularly beneficial, in my opinion, for the disease state of sleep apnea because in sleep apnea, well, let's do like a normal. Okay. So normally, like say this is your blood glucose, my finger here, ooh, over here. Blood glucose dips a little at night, just a little bit. Like you're not going to hypoglycemic shock, but it dips. In sleep apnea, it's higher and it doesn't dip. So high, no dip. Normal, a little lower, a little bit of a dip. And you can get that low dip or get the dip back. You didn't plan on saying that today. By having some early time restricted eating or skipping dinner or having an early dinner. All right. At the very least, like eat before 7 p.m. Jeez. Okay. None of this. And again, this is operationally defined as having like a 8 to 10 hour eating window and then whatever is remaining on the clock, whether it's 12 or 14 hours fasting window, but that fasting window is in the PM. All right. Again, may not be appropriate for everybody. Always talk to your doctor about, I guess, everything. Just call them up, see how they're doing, and all that there. And then I think it's maybe perhaps a boring piece of advice, but reducing the amount of carbohydrates is a pretty good way to reduce insulin. Just a thought. I guess that thought was crazy like 15 years ago, but I think people get it now. Number 2, cortisol. What do we do about that? Just relax. All right, stop freaking out. Or you can do the following. So one is cold therapy, which I almost hesitate to introduce, but it is very effective for reducing visceral fat. Now, again, it can cause issues with, say, whether like your heart or something like that. So I know I literally just said it, but especially around something like this, talk to your doctor about the appropriateness of cold therapy. Okay. Liability has been transferred. Now, with cold therapy, and doing it in a very gentle manner, doesn't need to be like a cold plunge, although I have an image of a cold plunge here because you can just never resist. This guy is having the time of his life here. And he wasted a lot of ice on the side. Ice is not easy to make in that quantity. Nonetheless, nice garden too. You don't need this. It could just be like in a swimming pool, okay? Because anything less than skin temperature is technically cold therapy. Now, in these studies, they will often use, what do they use here? Um, oh wow, did I really I found this study, I guess. So winter swimming and whole body cryotherapy. Man, I just really went for it here. This studied by a bunch, yeah, this is probably from Sweden, Scandinavia. Same thing, just people studying the cold because what else is there to do in the dark of winter? But what happens here is that not only is fat burning upregulated and insulin sensitivity is favored, but also cortisol will go down, which I know is like very counterintuitive because nothing says relaxing than jumping in a bucket of ice, but your body as it adapts will actually lower cortisol in response over time. Again, not for everyone, something you want to be very, very gentle, very, very slow with. Again, you don't need to jump in ice. You can ease into it here, like a lukewarm bath, like, or just not hot bath. Take it easy, my friends. All right. Now, the much more approachable thing, I would say, in comparison, breathing exercise is my favorite thing. I breathe every day. All right. I breathe and I sleep every day. That's how I became a breathing and sleep expert. Most people don't know that. That's somewhat of a joke. Now, what they found in this study is they just quite simply had people do a breathing exercise very similar to box breathing for about like 10, 20 minutes a day. And they found that cortisol went down from like 5.7 to 3.2 per blood test. That's like a 40% reduction. All right. P value, they even, apparently you just have a zero P value. That should be like 0.0001. Nonetheless, big change in a relatively short amount of time. And like this is one session, all right? Not like weeks at a time here. So being able to have breathing exercises into your day not only will help with the breathing aspect of retraining your breathing, because I think someone asked recently, they're like, hey, you tell us to do breathing exercises during the day. How does that help at night? What's going on here? Well, it's very similar to how it will rewire your nervous system to calm things down. So not only will it tone down the stress part of your brain, but also the breathing part. So you're having a slower, steadier breath at night. You have better breathing at night that is more favorable of a open airway. Now for the stress side, same thing. Now, I think it's going to be more beneficial to do this type of stress reduction breathing exercise in a way that is more in the morning and like really focused on stress reduction. Okay. Because sometimes the breathing exercises that I'll present, they're a little challenging, I'll be honest, and I wouldn't always call them, like, stress reduction, okay? So, like, do something super easy and gentle, whether it's box breathing, 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold, or, like, something even easier than that, like 5 in, 5 out. So that would be the type to create relaxation and contribute to lowering cortisol as evident from this study. Now, if you do wanna kick things up a notch to be able to have breathing exercises that are more suited towards you. Because being able to have that like slight challenge is very important. Because if it's too easy, it's not going to be that effective with improving your breathing at night. So you got to find it just right. That's what we do as part of the Peckus breathing program, where we figure out, hey, where are you with your breathing? What can we do to make sure we're matching things towards your at? Because then you can have faster progress in the breathing exercises. And that's why a lot of people are saying, like, very often in the first week, because I do ask you, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm sleeping a lot better. Oh man, I had such a good night last night. Okay, so if you're interested in that, go to ochnow.com/program, or the link is in the description as well. Just go down below, click that there. Now, moving on to the third and penultimate one. Penultimate is, by the way, the fanciest way and a way to sound very intelligent to say second to last. These receptors. So, with these receptors, there are supplements. I don't really want to talk about them because they have a lot of side effects. Um, but there are things that are pretty gentle and approachable for this. So green tea will contain EGCG, which is very helpful in making these receptors more favorable for you. But again, any supplement, always consider your individual circumstances with your healthcare provider. I should have like a counter every time I have like say a disclaimer. I think we're on like number 5. Now here, zone 2 daily walking. This doesn't mean you're walking in a zone like a physical zone. This refers to your heart rate here. I could give you a specific heart rate range, but I think it's easy to say it is a mode of intensity in which you could perhaps talk while doing the activity, but you couldn't sing for a prolonged amount of time. Right? That's a very back of the envelope way to calculate that. And the idea is about like 30, 60 minutes of this per day. Now, I'm not saying you have to go on a long 60-minute walk at once. I'm just saying that's what you want to accumulate, because the more people who get into that space, that's where like the 10,000, 15,000 steps comes through. It's really time as opposed to distance, but let's not get into that here today. But just finding ways, whether after a meal, a 10-minute walk, for instance, like after a meal, so 3 meals, 3 10-minute walks, 30 minutes, boom. Um, Here's a very useful one. So if you park farther away, if you take people's cars and park them far away, you want to walk away from the scene of the crime and get your steps in there. I'm not advocating for Grand Theft Auto, but it was just a joke because I try to keep myself entertained through these episodes. Just you want to find ways to build more steps into your day. So honestly, having some sort of pedometer, I don't love Fitbit, but just like manual pedometers are a great thing to have here. All right, now number 4 is chronic inflammation and just keeping things simple, not overloading you. Because here's the thing, all these other things we just mentioned will help with inflammation. Because when you're improving insulin, or improving your insulin sensitivity, rather, that will lower insulin, and then that will lower inflammation a little bit. When you lower cortisol, that will lower inflammation. When you get in walks and maybe get some EGCG, that will also help with inflammation. So really super simple, straightforward, probably the 2 biggest dietary things. Omega-3s from fish, preferably, okay? Far more superior to supplements. And then any anti-inflammatory foods, really like berries, turmeric if it's appropriate for you, okay? If you have kidney stones, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that there. And of course, improving your sleep at night is going to be the number one way to improve your inflammation. That's somewhat what we alluded to earlier. Where's that picture? Making up things? Yeah, because if this is the source, by this I mean not breathing well at night, that's going to be the main thing driving inflammation. So yes, food and certain nutrients will help put out that fire, but obviously being able to correct this is going to be the most important thing. So these are the things that, again, have been shown to help with visceral fat reduction. And of course, as you improve your sleep, or if you add in a calorie deficit down the road, that will just continue to accelerate things. All right. So there's everything you need to know for now, I guess. And of course, if you want a simple step-by-step path to having the best breathing, people will just ask you, how do you breathe so well? They'll just stop you in the street. That's what the Peckus breathing program is all about. I don't think that's ever happened. I really don't. But it could. You could be the first. But seriously, check it out. Simple step-by-step protocols for you to have great progress, and also you get direct access to me. So whatever questions you've got that I can help you with, I'm there for you. So check that out, oshnow.com/program. or go to the link in the description. Usually towards the end of the video, there is a button that has it there, or maybe there's not, maybe I forgot. Either way, thanks for watching. Have a good one.